Hi, I'm Charlie Beasley, a consultant at the global leadership advisory and search firm Egon Zehnder. I'm also a co-founder of EZ+, the Egon Zehnder LGBTQ+ and allies community. I'm absolutely delighted to be here with two absolutely inspiring women. Julia Hoggett, the current CEO of the London Stock Exchange and an advocate for LGBTQ inclusion and a role model for many. We're also delighted to be here with Pippa Dale, also from the London Stock Exchange Issuer Services, a role model for equity and inclusion and the founder of LGBTQ Women. Thank you both for joining us. How do you feel being seen as a role model for the LGBT community, both outside the LSE, but also within it?
When I started doing much more public diversity and inclusion speaking, it was predominantly when I came back to the UK and back into investment banking. And I was at a firm where I was really the only senior female MD on the floor. And I looked at the young women around me and thought, who do you have in front of you who can give you that sense that anything is possible? Because these were brilliantly talented women. So I had no difficulty thinking that, of course, women can be MDs in investment banking, just demonstrably in front of you on your first day in the team. But then I came back in many, many years later to find that I was really the only role model for those young women starting out. And I also thought, well, I'm openly gay. I haven't worn trousers to the office since 1998. And I am a mother, but I took 2 weeks off for the birth of my son and 2 weeks off for the birth of my daughter. How can I be seen as a role model for a lot of these young women? The risk is I look like the reason they can't get there, not the reason they can. Because my life looked much more like my male colleagues than it did my female colleagues. And I realized my job was to start talking about my experience so that something resonated. And actually be prepared to open up and tell my story in a way that at first was quite uncomfortable. And so I've now been doing that for over a decade. And so I've got more and more used to and sort of accepting of that role. I actually feel quite passionately now that if you care about diversity and inclusion, you have to be prepared to reveal parts of yourself that will help others follow you and connect with that being possible.
Why do you think it is difficult for LGBTQ leaders, and particularly women, to embrace the role that they can have as a role model, and particularly where we see some of the research that shows how few women, particularly senior women, are open about being LGBTQ in the workplace?
To get senior gay women, you have to first get senior women. I'm not convinced actually that there is a greater reticence for women than there is men in coming out professionally. I think the absence of women or gay women, visible gay women, is more to do with the preponderance of women in senior positions in the workplace rather than necessarily a lack of willingness for gay women to come out. I think the challenge is, both of us, I think we're very lucky in having opportunities to come out very early on in our career, because we've both built many, many years, won't say how many, but we have both built many, many years of positive reinforcement of the comfort and confidence of doing it. I haven't been hired to a job since the first one where they haven't known that that's part of the package, as it were. And I have sometimes asked, when I've been approached, you know what you're getting, right? And the response is, yeah, we do. We want it because of that. And not despite that, I think, which is an important thing to test. So I think that gives you much more confidence in terms of being out and being open. And if you haven't had that, the leap will feel bigger and bigger and bigger and bigger over time. I think my main comment to that would be jump in, the water's lovely, and that people will understand why people have not historically, because everybody does understand the history of the persecution that the community has experienced and why people have made perfectly rational decisions not to. But I think there's something very freeing about being able to be open.
And Pippa, I'd be interested in your perspective just on either the particular challenges or obstacles that LGBTQ women might face coming out in the workplace.
I mean, I think coming out in the workplace is, it really sort of underlines what Julia's just been talking about. I think people are bright. I mean, I think we're people, I mean, everyone is bright. Society is much brighter than we give it any consideration for. And I think that they know if you're hiding something. And I just feel that being out in the workplace just allows you to demonstrate honesty. And if you're honest about who you are, you'll be honest about what you're trying to deliver for an organization. I recognize it's not easy. It seems so much bigger than it is. I would definitely add to speak to somebody in your organization. We are actually a relatively small community. You will be able to find somebody who is saying, I am thinking of doing this. You are my peer at another organization. Reach out to somebody, contact them. That we're never going to turn around to somebody and say, oh, honey, you should have done that years ago.
Yeah.
I'm not going to support you. No. We are going to support each other because we want to see more visible role models.